we start now?
Let's start. Welcome.
Hi, Pauline. Hi, dear guy. I'm so blessed to meet you again. Sharing this beautiful planet with you, I'm so much blessed. I will start with a quote from Guy McPherson's book, which we will do it because of my virtual background. We cannot show it properly, but we will do a special interview only about this book because I really love the book. I cannot leave it from my hand. And here, Guy quoted someone else who is called Arundhati Roy, who wrote in 2001 book Power Politics. She said, "The trouble is that once you see it, you can't unsee it anymore. And once you've seen it, keeping quiet, saying nothing, becomes as political as speaking out. There's no innocence. Either way, you are accountable." So you know it. And if you do not speak, you will be blamed forever that you didn't share your knowledge. You know it and you didn't share it. You will be blamed for it. And if you speak, you're again blamed.
Yes, I've noticed that.
You all see this, right?
You probably saw the Associated Press article written by Seth. What's his name?
Oh, God.
I can't remember his last name. Anyway, I posted it on the blog yesterday.
And I do follow your way, Guy. Speaking the truth that I know, even though it's hurtful, covering myself and people who love me, and even people who hate me, with compassion, as you said here, with heavy dose of creativity and courage to follow this way. Indeed, what have we got to lose? We lost everything already.
Exactly. In fact, there's a well-known song by Chris Christopherson called Me and Bobby McGee. And in there, he includes the line, "Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose." And I've lost or had everything taken away from me except two things: the love of this beautiful woman and my integrity. And presumably I'll hold on to those till the end. At least the integrity part. The rest is beyond my control.
But you have your health, too.
Like the old commercials used to say.
Or Princess Bride.
Right.
If you don't have your health, what do you have?
Dear Guy, dear Pauline, thanks a lot for what you do, for speaking the truth with courage and compassion. And last week you were premiering one of videos on your channel, and that time we seen a lot of questions coming from the audience in the live chat, and we thought we write down those questions to address them as a response video. So I will go through those questions today, but before we start, just a quick question from me. I believe you will make a separate video about that later, but just a quick mention of the IPCC press release from yesterday. Did you think about that?
You know, I'm torn. The IPCC obviously is the go-to place for almost everybody who's interested in climate change, but they vastly downplay the climate emergency that is going on. And that report was used as the springboard for Seth Borenstein's report that was in the Associated Press. So it was in essentially every newspaper in this country yesterday. And of course, he used it as a hit piece against me, and claimed that Michael Mann and I were having this public argument. Well, That public argument goes back to 2017. I was invited to be a panelist at the Geological Society of America meeting in 2017 in Seattle, Washington. And Michael Mann was going to be on that panel as well. And he stepped in and made sure that I was uninvited from the meeting, that I was not allowed to participate because I was going to speak about evidence instead of opinion. And that countered his renewed perspective. Now, interestingly, he first wrote about the hockey stick with other colleagues in a paper in Nature, which is a great journal. This was in 1998. He now has a teenage daughter. She was 14 years old last summer, so she's either 14 or 15 years old now. And so he chose to have a child several years after writing about the hockey stick. So he claimed to know what was coming, and then he burdened the planet and that poor child he had with the disaster that we face. It doesn't make any sense at all to me. But what do I know? Okay. If you read Seth Borenstein, I don't know anything.
What did the IPCC say?
The IPCC report from yesterday took its typically conservative stance, said that we are not going to pass 1.5 C above the 1750 baseline, even though, according to renowned biologist Andrew Glickson, Professor Andrew Glickson, we are already past 2 degrees C. And he wrote that in his October 2020 book, The Event Horizon. He said we're already past 2 degrees C. And the IPCC is still claiming that we're going to come in under 1.5. Interestingly, just yesterday, in response to that report, the Secretary General of the United Nations said that there's no way we're going to be able to keep it at 1.5 C. So even though that's the official finding of the IPCC, the Secretary General of the United Nations, and the IPCC is a United Nations organization, they're embedded within the United Nations. He said despite the finding that we must stay at less than 1.5 C, he said there's no way for us to do that. So talk about mixed messages. People have every right to be confused at this point because the populace has been lied to so many times by so many different paid climate scientists and corporate media figures and politicians, of course. So, I mean, it doesn't come as a big surprise that these mixed messages are coming forth. Almost anybody can look around, see what's happening on the planet, and conclude that something has gone awry, something is not quite right. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are starting to admit that, as we see more than 5 million deaths a year as a result of, quote, non-optimal temperatures. This from a peer-reviewed paper I've reported on previously. And loss of habitat already occurring due to lethal wet bulb temperatures, again, from peer-reviewed papers that I've presented here on YouTube. So people are confused. Of course they're confused because they've been lied to and the lies continue. The IPCC continues the lies. It's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, continues the lies with their latest report. And they will continue to lie until the very end. I have no doubt about that. That's the only way.
I also have no doubt because it's part of United Nations and who also brings the sustainable development goals, including economic growth. Mm-hmm. I wonder how we can have infinite economic growth in a limited environment while we are already hit all the thresholds, already overshooted all the environmental resources. Mm-hmm. So keeping telling lies is the only way to cover up this previously told lies and giving false hope to people who trusted on them. I will never try to convince anyone to change their minds in this channel anymore. I don't do this like it's irreversible or blah blah. I'm not trying to convince anyone anymore. If somebody believes that we can stop climate change at 1.5 degrees, if they don't agree, Instead of trying to write bad comments, just go ahead and follow me at the channel. And in this channel, we just talk about what we know as truth, just for the sake of, people who already understand, agree, and we share our ideas and sometimes trying to answer questions. And sort of, we made a supportive community here. That's why we speak. And personally, talking personally, I still hope that maybe some habitat to other species could be left if we just live ethically. I'm hoping. Maybe some bugs, birds, but whatever. I will do my best because of my responsibility of this Mother Earth who fed me so far.
Well, that's right. And all of us in this conversation have the integrity to keep doing the right thing. None of us are saying, look, we've triggered self-reinforcing feedback loops. Even the IPCC admits that climate change is abrupt and irreversible. Even the IPCC says both of those things in separate reports from a few years ago. Even though climate change is abrupt and irreversible, nobody in this conversation is saying it's time to start partying like it's 1999. It's time to start partying because we only have one day left. No, none of us are saying that. We are all choosing to live with integrity and encouraging other people to do the same. Part of that integrity means telling the truth. Through the 1960s, medical doctors considered it perfectly appropriate to not tell patients when they had a terminal condition. They would sometimes tell their family. They would sometimes tell nobody at all. Somebody has a 99.9% chance of being dead in the next few weeks or months, and they didn't tell them that. And then finally, sometime in the 1970s, the consensus changed and medical doctors started telling the full truth. Hey, as it turns out, there's a 99.9% chance that you, as an individual, are going to be dead in X number of months or X number of years, based on all this evidence we have accumulated. We're in a similar situation. Should we keep doing what other people do and tell the masses that if they just reduce their carbon footprint, that will be fine?
Probably, we say irreversible thing is reversible, and self-reinforcing feedback loops are stoppable.
Yeah.
That's I don't know. At least for our integrity, we will not do that for the sake of being popular. So I go with the first question from the audience, who was written in the live chat. How do you live each day with the knowledge of what is coming in near term?
On my phone, on this phone right here, every single day, 2 words come up. 10 a.m. Eastern Time. These 2 words are amor fati. Amor fati, from the ancient Stoics to the modern Stoics, means love your fate. Love your fate, no matter what it is. No matter that you are going to die, because everybody does. No matter that you're going to die relatively soon, because everybody does. When I was touring Western Europe, 2014, I think, people were still denying abrupt, irreversible climate change and still confused about how to conduct their lives. And I was at that time suggesting that we love our fate, that no matter what happens, we must go forward. While I was on that tour, the world's oldest human being at the time turned 117 years old. And at her birthday party, when asked to ponder those first 117 years of her life, she said, quote, "It seemed rather short," end quote. None of us have 117 years in us. And even if we do, I suspect it will seem rather short. Mm-hmm. So Love your fate. Pursue integrity. Keep doing the right thing. And if you're not doing the right thing because you're paid to do otherwise, then you might want to think about changes in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm dominating the conversation. You go.
No, that's good. Yeah, I think for me, it's important to be with the people that I love and let them know that I love them, and not to judge their decisions and the things that they decide to do in their lives, and encourage them to do what they love doing. People ask me a lot about, my kids, how do you talk about this? And I really don't anymore. They know intuitively, and they've, been around me long enough to know that, I think we're, done for. But they're alive now, and they're doing their art, and they're living their lives with integrity, and my whole purpose is to encourage them to keep doing the things that they love, and to not worry about making big scary career choices, or making a lot of money, or being super super successful. If you're doing what you love and you're being successful, well, that's fantastic. But it's the most important thing is to, if you love drawing, draw.
Can you take a few minutes?
Really, that's how it works. When you do things that you really love, you suddenly become so successful, even though if you don't
Right.
aim at the first place.
Right.
Can you take a minute to tell what your son said when he realized that we were right?
He just said, you and Guy were right. I think it was, the pandemic hit, and there was no leadership really in this country. And then the IPCC came out with these really nutty reports, and he just we were talking one day, and he said, you know what, if this government, if this leadership, and both parties, in other words, had just asked the young people for their actual help and thrown them a bone, he said, we would have been there. We would have been right there on the front lines, making a difference, changing, helping, save the planet, save the young people today are suffering. And our leadership in this country is doing nothing for them, even though these young people sacrificed everything, donated their money and their time to help these idiots. And they've got nothing back. And now the planet's dying, and this leadership is still doing nothing about it. And he just looked at all this, and he said, Mom, you and Guy were right. We're done. And now I'm going to live my life the way I choose to. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to do the work that I love doing. And I'm going to eat great food, and I am not going to worry about trying to save anything because it's unsalvageable. There's nothing that we can do at this point. And I'm paraphrasing for him. Sorry.
and by the way, this is a man who's been very successful in pursuing his art. He is twice nominated for an Academy Award. So that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
So he loves what he's doing. He's obviously doing it very well.
Yeah.
And that we don't have long is incentive for him to keep pursuing right action. And of course, he's not attached to the outcome because he knows the outcome doesn't look good at all.
So we're going to the end of the line, and the things that I would have liked to see are never going to happen. And it's a lot like relinquishing your own will. And, as you always say in your lectures, let go or be dragged. It would have been nice to see a more focus on helping people have dignity in their lives as we go to the end. I figured that if we thought more about how a person can die with dignity, live with dignity, and then die with dignity, we would eliminate a lot of our social ills. The world would change a great deal. There wouldn't be any war. There wouldn't be any NATO. We wouldn't even need the UN. We would need none of those things. We would just, how is this person going to die? Is it going to be painful and tortured? If that's the case, we've got to change that. We've got to help, help people live a life of some comfort and dignity before their end. It's just the humane thing to do. And that's not going to happen, unfortunately. Maybe something changes, I don't know, but it doesn't look like that's going to change. Not with the recent events in the world.
It's true.
And all we can do as individuals is the best we can do as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
We're not in positions of great authority. We're not politicians. We're not CEOs of major companies. So we can have a positive influence on the people in our lives, including ourselves. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's really all we can do.
We should also know that we are only one individual. I mean, things are already happened when we were born. I'm born into this.
Right.
I cannot keep the Arctic. I cannot keep dying species every day.
Right.
If I just focus on what's going wrong, these are not nice things, which are not under my control. That will only make me depressed every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's my choice to focus on things that I can do and that I can enjoy.
Yeah.
Our friend, the renowned attorney Gerald Maples, said that you cannot expect the soccer mom, and I'm going to paraphrase here, you cannot expect the soccer mom who's taking her kids to practice to give up driving a car. But you can expect the fossil fuel industry, the fossil fuel companies, to make major changes. And this is when he was suing more than 100 fossil fuel companies in the wake of Hurricane Katrina in the United States, a case that went well into the judicial system in the United States, all the way to the Court of Appeals before it was rejected for reasons that the Harvard Law Review, for example, found completely ridiculous, unrelated to the law itself.
Technical stuff.
Right. So there are things we can do, but those things are not going to change the direction that we're headed, that we've been heading for our entire lives. And coming to grips with that is important, and that influences how all of us live each day with the knowledge of what is coming near term, because we don't have much influence over what is coming near term, but we might have some influence over the people in our lives that we see every day or every week.
Sharing love, sharing care, that's all we can do. And if you can plant a tree, plant a seed, do that. Just for love of doing it, not for changing something. Aiming to change is only given pain.
It's also, I think it's also really important to find people who have similar principles, like you, and that you can actually have conversations with and commune with and share those ideals with. It's very difficult to be in the same room with people who don't share those values. It can often be toxic. So that's one of the things I've had to do, is detoxify my life. And it's not easy. It's very painful.
Yeah.
It's painful to detoxify. You become addicted to relationships. And you need them. We as humans are social animals, and we need each other. So there are a lot of relationships in your life that you rely on, but there are toxic parts of those relationships. So you have to decide how to continue, and that's a tricky thing to do.
But for ourselves, we need to change sometimes. I continue with the next question. What are your latest estimates about an ice-free Arctic? Do you believe that it's this year?
I think that's for you.
As we call it climate casino.
Right.
This year or next year? We see
Right.
the bets.
Right.
It's amazing. It's amazing to me that we made it this long. Wisław Maslowski and colleagues had a paper published called The Future of Arctic Sea Ice. It was published in the Annual Review of Earth and Planetary Sciences. And the annual reviews are among the most conservative of peer-reviewed journals. They come out once a year on each topic, thus annual review. And in their paper, they concluded based on a linear projection that we were headed for an ice-free Arctic in 2016, plus or minus 3 years. And I had a conversation that Pauline recorded, must have been 2019?
Yeah.
When we were on tour, and we met with Professor Maslowski, and he indicated that their linear projection was significantly influenced. First of all, it's linear, and it was significantly influenced by the last year that they had data, which was 2007. So that dragged down the projection a little bit so that it hit 2016 plus or minus 3 years. Now, since then, Professor Maslowski has been spearheading a program that provides a 6-month ensemble forecast. And I thought that would be out before today, because for late September, which is when the Arctic ice usually reaches its minimum, we would expect that result to appear by early April. And it's not out yet. I just checked this morning. But when the forecast does come out, which I expect within a week or so, then I will certainly mention it in a video that we produce for YouTube, because this is very, very important. The loss of Arctic sea ice will so accelerate an already very rapid rate of environmental change that it's difficult for me to imagine there will be habitat remaining for vertebrate mammals, including humans, on this planet, because of the very rapid rate of environmental change in the wake of an ice-free Arctic. When you change something that's this color to something that's this color instead, the consequences are going to be profound, just from the loss of albedo. Never mind the accelerated rate of methane spewing out of the Arctic Ocean and other changes almost certain to result as well. So we don't know when that happens. We'll have a pretty good idea within a week or so of whether it's going to happen this year, with full effects realized the following year. At this point, I don't think that it will happen this year. I don't think we will have an ice-free Arctic this year. I think we will have one next year, which is consistent with what James Anderson said when he was interviewed for Forbes on January 15th, 2018, and also consistent with what Jennifer McKinnon at the Scripps Institution and also the University of California, San Diego, what she said in CBS News when she was interviewed on April 23rd, 2021, so about a year ago now. She said that it might happen this year or it might happen next year. So if we take the most conservative approach of both of those well-informed individuals, then that indicates the first ice-free Arctic in the history of civilization, in other words, in history, will occur not this year, but next year. And I think we'll have a pretty good idea within the next week or two which one of those is right, whether it's this year or next year.
But we are going into an El Nino.
Yes.
We're not already in it. So.
Yes, and the El Nino certainly will release heat and greenhouse gases from the ocean. And so that will, if it hasn't been locked in already, that will almost certainly trigger an ice-free Arctic in the year to follow. So no matter how you look at it, we're close, and the already very rapid rate of change will only be accelerated by an ice-free Arctic Ocean.
Is 2012 still the lowest ice extent here?
I don't know. I suspect so, but I haven't looked at it recently. The last 15 years are the lowest extent ever. Each of those, I mean, those 15 years are the lowest 15 years on record.
I feel like this summer we're going to end up with the lowest extent in history. Because
it could be that it'll happen this September, late September.
It's pretty low.
But again, I think we'll have a really good idea within a week or so, based on the Naval Postgraduate School ensemble forecast.
Forward to hear your updated comments then in 2 weeks. We will have an interview about your book, and maybe that time we can mention it.
Right.
But I think only on this topic we don't agree with each other. I'm expecting Blue Ocean event for some reason this year. It's just I didn't do any scientific analysis of that. It's just my intuition of the environment. I'm expecting some heavy heat waves this summer, and probably it will hit heavily. But I'm also expecting that it's always easy to stop Blue Ocean event by changing the definition of what Blue Ocean
Oh,
is.
yes.
Right. Right. So it turns out that you and Pauline are the bummers in this conversation. You
Wah,
think that...
wah. The Debbie Downers.
Thanks for your answer. So we will see it better in 2 weeks, I understand, but your current expectation is probably 2023.
Right.
So somebody else is asking, would it be a good idea to move my family to Alaska?
Well, from my perspective, that depends upon what family you are. If you're a family that I don't get along with very well, please go to Alaska. I don't think it'll do any good, and we've produced videos on this subject called Going South Won't Save You and Going Higher at Elevation, although I don't think that was actually the name of the video.
No.
Won't save you either. And that's because loss of aerosol masking is going to affect everybody, and very rapidly. As James Hansen has pointed out many, many times, the aerosols fall out of the atmosphere in about 5 days. 5 days. So if we terminate industrial civilization or even reduce industrialized activity, those aerosols will fall out of the sky and will cause a very, very rapid heating of the planet. So if you're in Alaska, that's not going to save you, because the ecosystems around you are dependent upon the current temperature in that region and the length of day and a whole bunch of other things. But that's going to change very profoundly in a short period of time. And so I don't think moving anywhere is going to save anybody. It might add a few days or a few weeks to your life. I suspect the safest place to be for longevity, for human longevity, is on the south end of the South Island in New Zealand. But I also thought Tasmania, the southern island state of Australia, would be a good place to go. And as a consequence, Steve Wozniak moved there, and he hates to fly. He doesn't like to travel at all. He hates to fly. And he moved there a few years ago, I think 2015, early 2015 or late 2014, something like that. And he moved to a relatively small community, and what do you know? All of a sudden there's fires everywhere in Tasmania. Unprecedented fires. And it doesn't look like that was such a swift place to go after all. And so I suspect there are a few places that if you store years worth of food and have the ability to keep your water purified, that you might be able to add a few days, weeks, maybe even months to your life.
And no nuclear power plants.
Well, we'll have to shut all those down within the next 20 minutes as well.
Right.
Otherwise, you're committing yourself to a truly miserable existence as nuclear power plants melt down and therefore strip away stratospheric ozone, and then you're immersed in ionizing radiation as well. As the aerosol masking is lost and therefore we are committed to really rapid heating, yeah, you might get a few days or a few weeks. Will it be worth it? It wouldn't be to me. It wouldn't be to us. But I can't speak for anybody else.
Well, we've moved 4 times.
Yes.
In the last 4 years.
And we're doing that to provide service for members of your family.
5 years. Yeah.
And because
it's exhausting. We don't recommend it.
And that's what's important to us, is providing service to our families and to other people. And that's why we continue to have conversations like this one, because we're service oriented. That does not include moving to Alaska. It did include moving to Vermont because it's a beautiful state, not because it's going to extend our lives, but because it's a beautiful place.
It will extend the quality of our lives.
Right.
Our relationships with family and friends.
And that's
things only because of love, not because of fear, I would say, is a message.
Yes.
Right. And that's important, that people understand that if you're going to move, do it for the right reasons, not because it might add weeks or months to your life, but instead because it's going to improve the quality of your life.
Do it for love, not because of fear.
Right.
But I'm expecting that we are still missing to see that this is a complete body altogether. This is one thing. It's just like our small bodies. If, for instance, human body has a cancer, its all body is sick, not the only part of where there's tumor is not sick, all body is sick. And just like that, when this planet is sick, it's not only one place, it's all around. It's one thing altogether.
Right.
I'm really wishing to see people see this as a one thing, one body.
Right.
Not I escape here and there, but just love it as it is, and know that it is, when something is happening somewhere, it's going to be also happening somewhere else. It's one body.
People who have been promoting the idea of one life, one love, loving each other, I don't know if you noticed, but they don't live very long. They either stop promoting that message or they die under suspicious circumstances. So,
or not suspicious.
So I think it's a great message. I'm willing to die for it. But I never thought I'd make it this long, given the 2016 plus or minus 3 year projection from many years ago. That paper was published in 2012. So it's all good.
Perfect message. So somebody is asking about the heat waves, which recently, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago, hit to Antarctica and also Arctic. We've seen anomalies, temperature anomalies in Antarctica around 40 Celsius degrees. So how will it change all the projections, for instance? What will it lead us to? Do you think it will trigger maybe something that we didn't expect earlier?
Well, I think these record temperatures are expected outcomes, and they're also indicators. They're products of what we have been doing on this planet. They're not harbingers. The harbingers were the people who predicted them long ago, and now they're showing up. The heat waves have been impacting the entire planet now for several years. So these heat waves in the Arctic and Antarctic are expected, have been predicted, and are now playing out. They're just another symptom of all that we collectively have done wrong to this planet.
Perfect.
I don't know
and
what
the last question, dear Guy and Pauline, this is coming to two of you as a couple. Somebody is asking, what are you, Guy and Pauline, planning to do in near future? Are you scared of what's coming? How are you making your plans and lives?
I'm not scared. I'm just very sad. And I think that I'm also angry because there were things that could have been done to slow this, and instead, people chose to be petty and greedy. So it's difficult, it's sad, and but you know, based on that first question, how do we live each day, knowing this is coming, you do what makes you happy, you do what brings you and your loved ones joy, and you take each day one day at a time. And you know, you do, like you said, plant trees and flowers and food, and as though there will be tomorrow.
And Pauline has planted $9 million worth of bulbs. In the fall, when we first got here, she planted a whole bunch of bulbs so that in the spring they would come up and be beautiful.
Hundreds.
So
and it was freezing out there.
So we're at some level we are planning for another day, another month, another year, because we have to. Because if we don't, it's complete disaster. What if we said we don't have tomorrow? We would spend every dime we have. We would be living out on the street tomorrow. At some point, there is no tomorrow. At some point, we don't live anymore. And so we are living with urgency and not letting that interfere with us doing the right thing. You know, Edward Abbey had this great line: "The fear of death follows from the fear of life. A man who lives fully is prepared to die at any time." And we can assume he meant that applied to women as well, although some of his writing indicates he didn't realize women existed. In any event, the fear of death follows from the fear of life. We live. We do for the most part, what we want to do while maintaining our integrity. We want to maintain our character. That's first and foremost, obviously. And then we also do the things we love to do with people we love to be with.
And we also do things we don't love to do, like pay our taxes. And we do our very darndest to not pay as little as possible, because we know where most of those taxes go, and they don't go to education or to protecting the planet. So
they go to the military-industrial complex.
Right.
So in the relatively short term, here is something that we have done. We have a water filter so that we can collect water and put in it. We will have safe water to drink. But that's as much an effect of the infrastructure in this country starting to fall apart. So we don't know what day the water will stop flowing through the taps. And so it's good to have a filter that will provide for your water needs every day too. And we have a little bit of food stored away, what we call apocalypse food, stored away in our basement that will allow us to persist for another few weeks in case the supply chain is cut off and we don't have access to water flowing through the taps. Beyond that few weeks, I don't think either of us is interested in surviving in a world that is falling apart, that is soon to be overheated beyond the ability of humans to tolerate, that has all humans immersed in ionizing radiation as the nuclear facilities melt down. We're just not interested in living that kind of way. So we have enough apocalypse food to last for a few weeks and the ability to filter the water that we have. That's enough.
You're living great examples. Thanks a lot for sharing your experience. It's also quite private details. It gives a lot of courage to people to live with integrity and doing things which are ethical in our lives, speaking the truth and loving our faith, what it is. Thanks a lot for your great messages. Pauline, I share your grief. That's why I especially wear black
Mm.
I'm sharing your grief about our planet and
Thank
all
you.
species who didn't deserve this.
Right.
Dear Guy McPherson, thank you so much for your knowledge, for sharing it. It's so hard to speak the truth, I know, as you also quoted. I mean, if you don't speak, you will be blamed for not speaking.
Mm-hmm.
If you speak, you're blamed, and you still choose the courageous way. Thanks a lot for your courage. Are there some last sentences you want to share?
I want to share something from renowned public figure John Kenneth Galbraith, written in his 1977 book, The Age of Uncertainty. On page 22 of the original version, he wrote, "People of privilege will always risk their complete destruction rather than surrender any material part of their advantage. Intellectual myopia, often called stupidity, is no doubt a reason, but the privileged also feel that their privileges, however egregious they may seem to others, are a solemn, basic, God-given right." Now, this tells me that we cannot depend upon somebody else, somebody like Elon Musk or Warren Buffett or Bill Gates or Joe Biden or anybody in a position of influence over the entire society. We can't expect them to do the right thing ever. And so the very idea that we will somehow rally at the last possible second and save ourselves, like in so many movies that have come out of Hollywood, I think that's just wishful thinking. I just don't see that happening, because people of privilege are willing to risk their complete destruction rather than surrender any material part of their advantage. Anything. They won't give up anything if it means saving the planet, if it means saving their family, if it means saving habitat for humans on Earth. They won't do a thing.
I think Kurt Vonnegut says it best. Said, "We marched, millions of us around the world marched against the invasion of Iraq. Millions. It was a global, the globe was unified against that." He said all of those marches and voices and petitions had enough power as a banana cream pie. And this
had as much power.
Has as much power as a banana cream pie. And they still, Iraq was still invaded illegally. And the point is, even if we tried, even if we got together, the people of privilege will stop us. They will do everything in their power to stop us. They will do whatever they want to. And it's a difficult pill to swallow. But we must swallow it.
It is what it is. We're incredibly fortunate to be here at all. As I pointed out many times, the odds against any one of us being here in physical form, based on our knowledge of DNA, is greater than the odds against plucking a single atom at random from the entire universe. And yet here we are, privileged with the eyes to see where we are and the brains to wonder why. As that guy said.
Richard Dawkins.
Yes, right. The British man.
Thank you so much for this great interview, for answering questions from the audience. And next time I will meet you to discuss about Going in Dark book. Just read every piece of book. I will overwhelm you with questions. I'm sorry, but I also cried a lot when I'm reading this book, because it really resonates with me about how I'm also treated. I also felt myself out of society with my radical ideas or radical way of doing things, and I didn't want to fit in, and I didn't want to accept lies also, just to live like the called normal that I do not find normal. And I will speak to you about the books.
The book Going Dark served as the basis for Pauline's documentary film of the same title, Going Dark. and it's available on YouTube and Vimeo. It's 30 minutes long, so it's, except for the ending, which I think is awful. It's quite an accurate depiction of my feelings at the time, and that's why the ending is so awful, because I was so devastatingly sad.
That's.
We should put the links in the description part of the video in our channels. Thank you so much, dear Guy McPherson and Pauline, and for your time, for your love, for your compassion, for your answers, knowledge, everything. And I hope to see you soon again.
Thank you, Beril, for your wonderful understanding and your spirit. You're just a sparkling gem. I appreciate it so much. Thank you.